I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. A new immigration bill ignites a storm of controversy. We'll have reaction from Brooklyn.
This particular law just brings out the wrong things in people.
Have Guitar will minister. One of the church's most popular troubadours pays us a visit.
Between the recession and the church and politics, and people need encouragement. They need to be given good news.
And we'll get a special in-studio performance.
My spirit exalts in God, my Savior.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Francesca Maxime has the night off. A newly signed bill in Arizona is causing a lot of controversy coast to coast. It's the state's new strict immigration law. And as you're about to see, the bill has passions running high. Arizona Governor Jan Brewer signed the sweeping immigration bill into law Friday. Supporters say the bill will crack down on illegal immigration.
It's just another tool to fight the illegal immigration, and now this new law will give us a little more authority.
But opponents of the law say it will lead to racial profiling. That's because the bill requires law enforcement officers to ask for proper immigration documents from anyone they have a reasonable suspicion of being in the U.S. illegally. Protesters filled Arizona streets this weekend to speak out against the law.
This is a national embarrassment for this country.
Under that law, I have to be able to prove my citizenship.
I don't think it's prejudice. I just think it's just for illegals.
We now look ignorant. I think it's a cry for help to get the federal to come in.
Religious leaders have also made their voices heard. Reverend Al Sharpton vowed to fight the bill in court. Los Angeles Archbishop Cardinal Roger Mahony last week likened the bill to communist and Nazi techniques. And all of Arizona's Catholic bishops spoke out against the bill. The Archbishop of Atlanta weighed in this weekend.
We have to figure out a way to make sure that immigrant peoples are not targeted for discrimination, that they are not picked on because they happen to appear to be Latino.
But the fight over this new law is far from over. Phoenix Mayor Phil Gordon says he will ask the city council to file a lawsuit to block it before it goes into effect. Spirited debate there about this new law in Arizona, but what does the bill mean for Catholics, and especially those in the Diocese of Brooklyn? To get a better idea of the concerns church leaders have about this new legislation, our Natalia Ortiz spoke earlier today with Monsignor Ronald Marino. He's the vicar for migration in the Brooklyn Diocese.
Thank you so much for being with us, Monsignor Marino.
Thank you.
Now, leaders from the Catholic Church throughout the world, Archbishop of El Salvador and Cardinal Mahony in Los Angeles have also been expressing their discontent with this. Cardinal Mahony actually said this is the country's most retrogressive, mean-spirited, and useless anti-immigrant law. What do you have to say about the Church's position, and why is this such an important issue for the Catholic Church?
Well, Cardinal Mahony's right. It is useless and mean-spirited as well. The Church is concerned that the laws of the country be observed and respected. But the Church says that the laws need to be just and the laws need to be fair. And they need to protect the common good, and they need to protect the dignity of the human person. And this particular law, if it stays on the books, because most people think it's unconstitutional and will be challenged to death, just brings out the wrong things in people. It brings out this suspicion of immigrants. It criminalizes them. It makes them afraid of the police even more so, because now police can stop them and demand papers that not everybody, certainly none of us, really carry around documents of identity. Correct. Since we don't have one. And I think it's going to cause a lot of very wrong things to happen, like profiling, like discrimination, like the wrong people being arrested, like civil rights violations, along with so many other bad feelings. I think it's going to drive undocumented people more into the underground than before, and that's a dangerous situation.
So if nothing changes, this bill is expected to take effect between August and September. Now this, for now, it only applies to the state of Arizona.
Right.
But now bringing it home here to New York, which is where we're sitting here and where a lot of our viewers are watching us from, in the Diocese of Brooklyn, what can we do to help as Catholics or just as people in general? What can we do to help?
Well, the Diocese of Brooklyn is very lucky, and New York City is lucky to have the Diocese of Brooklyn in it, because our people are well trained and our people are very respectful of each other's cultures. This Diocese of Immigrants has been that for a long time, and people love who we are. But I think what we need to do is make sure everyone understands the issues, make sure everyone's educated properly. You know, fixing the border is not necessarily reform of immigration.
Okay.
And immigration reform is not just get stricter with the undocumented. It's bring families together, it's fix the laws, it's clean up the backlogs of immigration cases. It's things that people deal with every day that live in our city that no one really knows about because they're private.
Right.
But they affect the quality of life of so many people. And this kind of a bill, I think, would never make it in New York.
That was my next question, actually.
Never.
This is the Diocese of Immigrants. There are so many different cultures. You know, in Arizona, it affects primarily Hispanics, but here it would affect people from all over the world.
Right.
And why do you think it wouldn't make it? Or what are the chances that it could, you know, maybe one day come to New York?
Well, I mean, there have been attempts in the past to have this, and the mayors have, by executive order, you know, just issued executive order after another saying, immigration is a federal issue. It's not a municipal issue. And the municipal police, the NYPD, should take care of municipal issues, and the federal government should take care of federal issues like immigration. Of course, if anyone commits a crime of any kind, they should be arrested and punished.
Okay.
Anybody, okay, papers or not. But other than that, you know, let the police do their normal job and let the federal government do its job. And doing the federal government's job, unfortunately, is what we need to change. Not that they're not arresting people or safeguarding the country, but the laws are really broken and the laws are really bad. You have a lot of immigrants here in New York, and I always say these are good people obeying bad laws. And that's why there's such confusion.
Thank you so much for being with us, Monsignor.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We'll continue to follow this story and bring you all of the latest and any developments about this Arizona immigration law right here on Currents. But stay tuned for now. There's more of today's show ahead. When we come back, we'll have the day's headlines, including controversy in Great Britain over documents mocking the Pope's trip there this fall. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up in just a bit, the words and music of John Michael Talbot. But first, let's check out the day's headlines. The British government has apologized over documents mocking Pope Benedict's visit to Great Britain later this year. The documents detailed suggestions for the papal trip, including having the Pope bless a gay marriage and even launch papal-branded condoms. The documents were intended to be a joke, but a government official who was found responsible has been reassigned. CNN senior Vatican analyst John Allen says it all needs to be put in some perspective.
Obviously, this was someone's idea of a joke, and I think it would probably be a mistake to sort of over-interpret it. But I do think it probably reflects a couple of points. One is, obviously, Great Britain is a very secular society in which there's a lot of people who do not accept many of the positions of the Catholic Church and may be inclined to poke fun at them. The other, I think, is particularly in the wake of the recent global sexual abuse crisis that has been swirling around the pontificate of Benedict XVI, he probably has lost some of the traditional deference that a pope would enjoy, which quite honestly makes it easier for some to sort of take shots at him.
The Pope will visit the UK in September. An archbishop in Sweden says he's ready to resign after failing to act on an abuse allegation. The victim in the case originally met with the Archbishop of Stockholm back in 2003, but says the only reply she received was a referral to a therapist. The Archbishop says he's prepared to take the consequences over a failure to initially investigate the case. In Italy, Vatican officials fear donations to the church could drop amid the sex abuse allegations. Under a special tax system in Europe, Italians can give a percentage of their income to the church. Since 2004, the number of Italian taxpayers donating to the church has steadily declined. Well, from the Vatican, Pope Benedict is reportedly set to announce a new council to re-evangelize parts of the world that have lost their Christian identity. The new church body would be called the Pontifical Council for the New Evangelization and would concentrate on the U.S., Latin America, and Europe. The Pope is also urging Catholics to give a soul to the internet. Speaking with participants at a conference this weekend, Benedict encouraged them to navigate the digital sea with the same passion that has steered the church for 2,000 years. And back in this country, an update now to a story we brought you last fall. A robber in Indiana whose victim persuaded him to pray during a holdup was sentenced on Friday but was not granted any leniency. We get more now from Ray Cortopassi.
In Court 6 this morning, 23-year-old Greg Smith and his family were asking a judge for mercy based on mitigating circumstances.
Sometimes hard times make good people do bad things.
Defense attorney Jack Crawford argued Smith, the father of a 2-year-old girl and a former enlisted man with the Air Force, had changed during his 6 months in jail, and it started with his prayer with the victim he was holding up, something Smith told us shortly after his arrest.
I know not to take anything for granted. I mean, I know now I'm trying to build my relationship with God right now. And like I said, anything is possible through him.
But the prosecution believed that prayer didn't come from the heart.
He finished the robbery. Even after he did that, he still took the money and the cell phone. So I've never found him to be as sympathetic as a lot of people do.
After Smith's family described his good points, his struggle to support the family, there was the other side, another woman who described the fear she still feels after Smith robbed her in a separate case that was dismissed as part of his guilty plea. After hearing both, the judge handed down a 12-year sentence, and Smith erupted in a fit of despair in the courtroom. His fiancée in anguish outside. And Smith's mother, the one who persuaded him to turn himself in, was relieved that he didn't get more time.
When he was sitting there praying, was that real or was that something?
It was real. It was real. It's real. It's real. No matter what monster you guys think my son is, he's a good person. It was totally wrong what he did, and I'm hoping he gets the help that he needs while he is incarcerated.
Stay tuned, there's more Currents coming up. Just ahead, from rock and roll to the Rock of Salvation, John Michael Talbot visits us for a talk and performance.
Motivational speaking, which I can do, and I do, points the way to the door. Music is often the doorway.
Welcome back. Well, across some 3 decades, John Michael Talbot has become one of the most popular and beloved Christian recording artists, selling over 4 million albums and selling out concerts around the world. And now this man, known as the Troubadour for Christ, finds himself in New York for a series of performances. And we're pleased to have him right now here on Currents, joining us in studio. John Michael Talbot, thank you so much for being here, sir.
It's great to be here, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's just an honor to have you. And of course, your music has reached so many people over such a great span of space and time now. You're really kind of, a legend in the Christian music world now, and we just thank you for making time for us.
Oh my. I'm grateful that you let me come.
Now you have to live up to that. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm a legend in my own mind.
Right. But now you're in New York right now, obviously, for these concerts that you'll be doing.
Yeah.
Now I understand you've got actually them coming up here in Brooklyn and Queens as well.
Yeah.
And you've got one actually coming up tomorrow night at Resurrection Church in Garrettson Beach, Brooklyn.
Correct.
And then you'll move on to Holy Trinity Parish, Whitestone, Queens coming up after that. So.
Right. Yeah, and it's not just music. This new format has really been kind of a rebirth for me. Of course, I've done, 52 recordings, 22 books. So we're doing anywhere from 1 to 3 days. And when we do the 3-night missions, it's a combination of music, teaching, and then leading people in guided meditation.
Wow.
And so a little bit of the music that people like, a little bit of motivational speaking, which people need right now. Between the recession and the church and politics, and people need encouragement. They need to be given good news. So a little motivation, and then taking them by the hand and leading them into that deeper experience with Jesus through an actual experience of meditation. A lot of people talk about it,
right,
but to actually take people into it is a whole other thing. So we're experiencing great success with these evenings. And in the old days, I did ticketed concerts, and we traveled with tour buses and sound and lights and crews and bands and the whole thing.
Groupies, the whole thing.
Yeah. And this new format is just so liberating for me because it's back to grassroots, back to the parishes, back to free will offering events. I kid, I say, with a ticketed event, you have to pay to get in.
Right.
With free will offering event, you have to pay to get out.
I love it.
And so we're just having a blast. And I'm 56 and I feel 25.
Well, it's amazing. It's an amazing thing. With this new format that you talk about, I think it's great that you are doing two things there that you talked about, and if you could expand on these concepts, I'd really appreciate it. One was the fact, taking meditation, which you said, which we talk about a lot,
right?
But taking that from being sort of this abstract sort of thing that's kind of there, and I kind of know what it is, but I kind of don't, to actually putting that into practice and making it something that's really a part of people's lives.
Right. I often say that, motivational speaking, which I can do, and I do, points the way to the door. Music is often the doorway.
Yeah.
But then you have to go through that doorway. And often the place that you go to is silence. So the greatest music is in silence. With meditational music, you have to hear the space between the notes, not just the note. You have to hear the silence between the words, not just the words. And we believe that that's appropriate because Jesus is the Logos, the Word incarnate in flesh and meat. So he was proclaiming even when he was silent, and he was ministering even when he was in what the ancients called Hezekiah, or sacred stillness. Yeah. So these evenings, we'll do a little music to kind of soften the soil, a little motivational preaching and teaching to teach about meditation. And then I'll pick up the guitar and we'll actually do the meditation together. So I don't just sing.
Right. And
I think that's why the live experiences of what I have done for 30 some odd years, why people keep coming back.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, in Christian music, I hear this all the time. They say, well, you're one of the only artists that really ministers anymore. Everybody else does shows.
Yeah.
I'm shocked by that because when I got out of secular music and went into religious music, what's the point in going back and doing what you did in the secular world?
Right.
I've already been there, done that, worn the tour jacket.
Exactly, and the T-shirt and the whole deal.
Yeah, the whole deal.
Well, and I love that you talk about listening in the silence, because as a musician myself, as you study music, the rests are written in for a reason. And they're just as important as every note on the page.
Right.
So that's something to definitely pay attention to.
Absolutely. And then, to use the musical analogy, the conductor takes an ancient piece or an older piece, say Bach, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, whoever, and the interpretation of that conductor is every bit as important as the composer and as the players. See, so that's where the Spirit of God works.
Yeah.
So in every time I sing Holy is His Name or Surrender to Jesus or St. Teresa's Prayer, it's a little different because that's the power, and that's where the Spirit of God is working. So as I'm singing, it's always this interplay. I'm praying, I'm with God, and I'm also really trying to sense where the people are. Yeah. What are they experiencing as we go through this together? And then you adapt it, you shift it a little bit, and it works. Oh, in recording, so many times we use, click tracks. Mm-hmm. I hated it when we started switching to click tracks, because music has to have, a little place where it slows down and speeds up, and you play with it.
The flow of the thing, yeah.
And a good classical recording is filled with that.
Absolutely.
See? And that's picking up on the spirit of the moment.
Yeah. Well, we'll continue, of course, our conversation tomorrow. You'll be here once again on Currents, and we'll appreciate that. And we'll talk more about your life and your ministry, and maybe go back in time just a little bit as well, and bring people up to speed on how your journey has led you to where you are. So
absolutely.
We'll talk about that tomorrow. John Michael Talbot, thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt.
Well, we have more information about where you can hear John Michael Talbot and buy some of his recordings as well over on our blog. Just go to currentsny.net, click on Riding the Wave while you're there. We'll continue our conversation with him on tomorrow's edition of Currents, as I just mentioned. But don't go away, a special musical performance by John Michael Talbot when we return. Well, finally tonight, a special treat here on Currents. We just heard about the life and work of John Michael Talbot, and now we're going to hear his music. Sending us off with a special in-studio performance, here again is John Michael Talbot.
My soul proclaims the greatness of the Lord, and my spirit exalts in God my Savior, for He has looked with mercy on my lowliness, and my name will be forever exalted. For the mighty God has done great things for me, and His mercy will reach from age to age, and holy, holy is His name. And holy, holy, holy is His name, and holy, holy is His name.
Oh, amazing, amazing. The music and message of John Michael Talbot, just beautiful. Well, that is it for tonight. Coming up tomorrow, they said I do, and they still do. celebrating long-lasting marriages. We'll have that and more coming up tomorrow here on Currents. But in the meantime, remember, we're always online. CurrentsNY.net is the website. You can also follow us on Twitter, become our fan on Facebook as well. Until next time, I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great night.